Didn't know you were going to come out and do a little singing today, did you? So I want everybody to start clapping like this. Just do a little something like that. We get you, keep that warm up and that momentum going. Okay, let's slow it down just a little. Here we go. Okay. So I want you to repeat after me, okay? I am empowered. I'm not a coward. I am empowered. And so are you. Turn to your neighbor. I want you to say, I'm so glad you came out today. All right. Well, I'm going to tell you why I'm here today. I'm here today because I have a message that I want to share with you. And just like Monish said, there's a quote that I always say and that I use more often than not. And it is, the true success, finding true success is learning what you're passionate about and learning how to monetize it. I'm going to say it again. True success is finding what you're passionate about and learning how to monetize it. And why is this important? And I'll tell you why. Most people flip that. They find the job that has the most money first. And because you have a job that makes a lot of money, you automatically think, oh, I have this great amount of success. And then once you have the job and you have the money and what you appear to have success, then you determine and you ask yourself a question, is this really what I should be doing? And you kind of force yourself into that scenario and kind of force yourself that this is exactly where I should be, when in fact it probably isn't. So as a coach, what I experience and what I see a lot of times with my clients are people that have that reverse fixation, that they haven't really understood what their passion is, but they have a job perhaps that was paying really good money. Maybe that's some of you in this audience. So maybe you have a pretty good title at work, so then you think you're successful. So as a coach, again, I help people get unstuck and move them beyond their circumstances. I help them get clear direction, get a new perspective on their passion, and move them forward. So some of you in the audience today might be in that transitional phase. I'm not sure why you're here today. I know why I'm here, and again, it's because I have a message to share with you. So I want you to start thinking about yourself and thinking of things that you may have going on in your life right now, where you are career-wise, where you are in your life, where you are in your relationships. And these all carry over when you talk about passion. And I do have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you, but before I do that, I want to share something. Actually, wasn't planned, it wasn't in the script, so I'm going to deter for a moment. But I want to share something that happened to me this morning. I'm not one to always go to church, but I do, and I should. This morning, I actually went to church. And how many of you know when you go to church, you go to events like this, sometimes a person that's speaking really sounds like they're speaking directly to you, like the message that they have was like made for you. So this morning, I went to church, and the theme of the day was dissatisfaction. And when I heard it, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have this event that I'm going to later. This is perfect. Because how many people have been dissatisfied in their career, in their jobs, by a show of hands? Whether it's now or whether it was before. And you have 2 hands up. So we know where you're at. So if you've been dissatisfied and you're unhappy, then why don't you do something about it? And I'm going to tell you why most people probably don't do something about it. There's some key things that tend to come up in our lives that prevent us from moving forward. And you'll hear me later call those blockers. Okay? So I know that I'm qualified to teach her. So let's just address the elephant in the room right now. I know you're looking at me like, oh my gosh, is she only 21? Is she qualified to speak here? But I will tell you that yes, I am old enough to be speaking here. I have many years under my belt. I know I don't look that old, but I will tell you I'm 3 years shy of being 40. So that just lets you know how old I am. I'm a woman. I don't mind sharing my age. My husband is here. He can vouch for me. That is my true age. So I have many years under my belt. And so what I'm going to share with you, this message that I have for you, is really to help get you unstuck and move you forward. And the reason why I know where you're at is because I was there. 2 years ago, I was in a job, worked in the financial industry. How many of you worked in the financial industry? Okay? So you know, just that alone comes with some baggage. I worked in the financial industry 2 years ago, had a good job, J-O-B, good career, made pretty decent money, had benefits, had steady income, whatever you want to call it, relatively could have been viewed as being successful. But there was one thing missing. And on the count of 3, I want you to say, Tiana, what was it? 1, 2, 3. I was bored. Is that really the answer? Probably not. Some of you might think it's bored, but it wasn't boredom. Okay, so let's try that again. So Tiana, say why. 1, 2, 3. Why? Because I needed more money. Was that really the reason either? Because I just said I made pretty good money. And these are sometimes things that we have that we say to ourselves as the reason why we continue to do certain things, or maybe why we don't. So I'm going to tell you the real reason. The real reason was I was unfulfilled. I was dissatisfied. I was unhappy. I didn't want to be in that position anymore because I really wasn't doing what was true to Tiana, what was true to myself. And so I took a bold step, and that's why this is baby steps, from baby steps to big dreams, because there's certain steps that you're going to take along the way to get you to where you're meant to be. So I took a bold step out of my W-2 9-to-5 job and started my own coaching business. So what I'm going to walk you through, this 7.5 steps, is really what my journey was to getting me to where I am today. And the first step was realizing what it was that I wanted to do. So 2 years ago, again, where some of you might be now, I was standing, or not, I wouldn't say standing, I was in my career, and I had asked myself a couple of questions, and I want you to write these questions down. Number one is, where am I now? Where do I want to go? And the third question is, how am I going to get there? So I know 2 years ago, where I was not where I wanted to be. But I didn't really quite know exactly where I wanted to go, and I certainly didn't know how to get there. So it was a process for me to figure that out. So I started thinking about what had I done over the last 15 years? What brought me the greatest satisfaction in my life? And I had worked in management for a very long time. I had trained, I had developed people, I had hired, I had recruited. So naturally, I had some connection to all of that. And I said, you know, this is something that I really do well. I love developing and coaching and training people. That's something I really love to do. So what career path would that lead into? Well, the first thing that came to mind for me was human resource, was an HR position. But then I thought about it and I said, well, that's going to put me back into a W-2, a job, and I don't want to work for somebody else. That's just not who I am. I need my independence. I need to do my own thing. So I said, okay, well, maybe it's not HR, but I still like developing and working with people. So this is how quickly your aha moment can happen, when you have an epiphany and you have a realization of what it is that you really want to do. I was at home and I was on the internet, of all places. How many of you spend time on the internet like I do? I searched for a bunch of stuff. So I'm on the internet and I'm really looking, I started looking at human resource, different things, and I kind of, you know, that website took me another website, and that website took me another website, and then I ended up on this, probably 4 or 5 websites in, I ended up on this particular page. And I don't remember the page that it was now, but I remember looking or reading a passage on this particular page, and something that was on there stood out to me. It literally jumped off the page in front of my face. And it wasn't a word that I hadn't seen before. It wasn't a word that I was unfamiliar with, given what I had been doing for many, many years. But this word resonated with me a different way this time than it had before. And the word simply was coaching. And again, not a very deep word, just something that happened for me. But I never looked at coaching as a career path or as a choice for me. And the more I kept reading this passage, the more it described me. Everything about coaching described who I was and what I was doing. So I continued to research and look and look and look. And by the end of that, I felt jazzed up. I was excited. And that's how you feel when you really find your passion. And I'm going to give you a little test, and I'm going to tell you how you know when it's really your passion or if it's a temporary feeling. When you look up the word passion in the dictionary, it means it's a strong emotion. You have a strong emotion to something. You can be passionate about your shoes. You can be passionate about your kids. You could be passionate about, you know, something else you might think. But the trick is, it's a strong emotion, and emotions are an affective state of consciousness. So when you have an experience, as I like to call it, an experience, I want you to say that, experience. When you have an experience that lasts longer long after that initial feeling, then you know it's your true passion. I'm going to say it again. So if you have a moment where you feel something, you get excited, you feel enthusiastic about something, you feel it in your soul, in your bones, and a week later, a month later, a year later, you're still feeling that inside of you, then you know it's something that is true and that is your passion. It is not a temporary type of feeling. So that's something that happened to me, because now 2 years later, this is still something that I'm very passionate about, that I enjoy doing. And simply put, a coach, in my opinion, does two things. And I'll tell you what that was for some of you who may not know what coaches do. And I'll tell you, coaches simply do two things, in my opinion. They get you to think, and they move you to action. They get you to think and move you to action. Because if we leave it to ourselves, a lot of times we don't do certain things. We don't know what questions to ask ourselves to move forward, right? So that is what I do in essence. Again, helping people to get unstuck. So once I realized that this is what I wanted to do, this was my passion, I wanted to do coaching. So the next step was just going out and creating a business and getting clients. It's that easy, right? Isn't that what I want to do? I want to be a coach. I can be a coach. I can do that. All I got to do, pick up the phone, make some phone calls, start calling myself a coach now. I could just do that. I wish it were that easy, but it's not. So what I had to start doing was figuring out what I needed to do to really make this business succeed. And so here's what happens to us when we're on high. I'm reeling from this excitement. Now I know I want to be a coach. This is what I want to do. So I'm excited. So what happens when we get excited and things are going well? When something good happens, sometimes something bad happens, or you think that way. So all of a sudden now I'm getting all these thoughts in my head are starting to come around. Tiana, do you really think you can do this? Are you qualified to be a coach? Who's really going to hire you as a coach? Can you really do this? So we start thinking of those negative things that start coming in our head, right? And that's what I call blockers. Things that can block you from reaching your potential. Write that down, blockers. And this is when I developed an exercise for myself. I create everything that I'm telling you is authentic to me. And it's things that I've done and I've learned and that I've gone through that have helped me. So draw a line down the middle of your piece of paper. And on the left-hand side, everything that I just mentioned, can I really do this? Am I qualified to do this? Is someone really going to hire me as a coach? So if we had to put words to that, what would they be? So if I said to myself, I'm having this self-talk, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if people are really going to think that I'm qualified to do this. What would that be considered? It would be doubt, right? What if I said, you know, I don't know how to do this. I don't know if I'm worthy, if I'm able to do this. I don't know. What could we call that? Insecurity. We could also say lack of confidence. We're going to hear more about confidence later, right? And there's one thing that always happens that comes out. And I'm going to tell you, what's the number one reason people don't move forward? Fear. Thank you. Who said that first? Okay. I have something. I forgot I have gifts. See, if I would have told you, then everybody would have gifts. So this is actually, throughout, I'll be giving away little gifts. This is a customized flash drive with my company logo, and it's 1 gigabyte, so you'll have plenty, and all of you business professionals can use that. It's fear, right? Fear stops us from doing a lot of things. So I had to get this down on a piece of paper because this is what I wanted to do, and I wasn't going to let fear stop me. So I had to write this down on a piece of paper. So on the left-hand side of your piece of paper, I put all those words: doubt, I put fear, I put insecurity, I put lack of confidence. I put all of that stuff down on my left side piece of paper. And I said, okay, I need to figure out what I already have, what's already inside of me that can combat all of this negative talk. What do I already have internally going for me, or anything going for me that I can almost use as a weapon to combat all of this negative talk? And so I started thinking about certain things that I already had inside of me to do that. And what do you think I came up with? And think about yourselves. What do you have internally? If you really want something so badly, what do you really need to have to move forward? Say that again. Passion is one. That's good. Knowledge is another one. That's good. I'm looking. It starts with a D. Determination. You need to have determination and drive and ambition. And so I started thinking about all of the things that I needed to combat all of that negativity. And that's what I call my dream blockers and dream builders. And this is an exercise that you also can use. Is when you think of things that you really want to pursue in life and what you want to do, you have to be honest with yourself. You're going to have that negative talk. It just happens. You're going to have it. The negative always seems to come in. Whenever something's good is going on, you have that negative. And so what I made sure to do was have more builders than blockers. So I would have drive, determination. I had commitment. Maybe I had support. Whatever it was, I made sure that I put that on the right side of my piece of paper so that I could visually see that. These are all the things that I have. This is everything that I need. And that was a good start for me because I wanted to do this in my coaching practice. So once I identified these were my blockers, I got my builder. I say, now I'm on my way. I'm getting going. Again, I did all my research. I became certified, got my website up, started going to any workshop, seminar, conference, anything I can get my hands on, partnered with people. So now maybe 6 months, 8 months down the line, this is where I'm at. But there's one thing missing from building my coaching practice. You can't have a business without a what? Without a client. So now the first thing that I needed to do after all of that was get a client. Because that would be extreme validation for me. Is once I get that client, then I know that this is what I was meant to do. But we all know when you get that first client, you can do anything one time. The key is doing it consistently. You can have luck once, but to be really good at it and to have success and to see that, you have to be able to do it consistently. So again, the fear can start coming up, but it starts coming up a different way now. So what I had to do was step out to find out if this is really what I'm meant to do, get my first client, then I'll know, I'll have validation that this is exactly what I was meant to do. And so when you think about where you are in your life or your career, what are you pausing on? What are you hesitating on? Are you stepping back because of fear? Is there something else that's standing in your way? And here's what we always tend to do sometimes, is we make up stuff. Stuff doesn't, when I was getting that negative talk in my head about, can I really do this? Am I qualified? It wasn't necessarily a fact. It was just stuff that I'm making up in my head. So you have to be able to take a risk and step out to find out, because if you never do, you'll be living in regret. And speaking of regret, I'm going to read this quote to you. And it says, at the top it says, failure is a part of success. Fear is why most people don't pursue their passion. They are afraid of failing. But what's worse than failing is the regret of never having tried at all. Worse than failing is the regret of never having tried at all. And I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to live in that space of regret. So I was going to try. Let me tell you something. How many of you know the story of Thomas Edison? Okay. Got gifts. Who can tell me how many times Thomas Edison failed before he invented the light bulb?
4,000 times.
Who said it? He said 10,000 times. Okay? I'll give it to, he can give it away. I'll give it to Rob. He can give it away. 10,000 times before he invented the light bulb. But at the end of the day, did he invent the light bulb? Was he successful? Yes, he was, right? But it took him 10,000 times before he did it. So let me just let you in on a little secret. You will fail. Okay? The key is we've created a negative connotation to that word fail. You have to understand that failure is a part of success. Now, let me also tell you, you will not fail 10,000 times, but if you embrace failure as part of the process to attaining success, then you will have won half the battle. So you have to understand why there is a process, and failure is a part of it. So don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid that if you try something once and you don't succeed at it, that it's over, it's done with, I have to give up. I'm not going to do this anymore. You have to get to the understanding that you're going to embrace that. So I want you to get in the mindset of saying, it's okay, I'm going to fail. But what you will not be, and I want you to write this down, you may fail, but what you will not be is defeated. Say, I will not be defeated. You may fail, but you will not be defeated. Napoleon Hill talks about this. For any of you who've heard of Napoleon Hill, he talks about temporary failures and things like that. You will not be defeated. So you have to continue pressing on and pushing through. So here I am, my coaching practice. I did get my first client. Didn't happen right off the bat, but it did happen. I continued to push through my challenges and my obstacles. I continued to build my business. And then after the validation of having the one client, again, I had to duplicate that. So now I needed client number 2, paying client number 2. And that's a process. So again, I went through the same process that I had done before, the same steps, 1, 2, and 3, right? So here I want to tell you a little story, because the next 3 steps really apply to this story, because I'm telling you about my career as it is now, but I want to tell you about something that happened because all of these steps I've gone through. I told you about when I first started, I worked in I told you when I first came up here that I had a really poor job. It was a job that I didn't like very much. I was in the financial industry. There's a lot of political crap going on in there. I wanted to just get out of there. I didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want to be any place that was not personally, professionally fulfilling to me and didn't align with my personal beliefs and values. But prior to that, years ago, I worked at a wonderful company. It was a company that I enjoyed. I started very young. I started when I was 17 years old, so now you know I already told you how old I was. I started at 17 years old, and it was a gourmet fast food, but it was gourmet fast food. And shortly after I arrived there at 17 years old, they were looking for a new manager to promote in this one location. So there turned out to be 3 of us that were going up for this position. It was myself, another young lady. It was actually 2 other young ladies that were there at the time. 2 weeks before they were going to make the announcement, one of the 3 young ladies dropped out. For whatever reason, I don't know if the pressure got too much for her, but she dropped out. So it left myself and this other young lady. Now let me tell you about the other young lady. She happened to be a very dear friend of mine. Still is to this day. She was about 2 years older than me. She was not 17. She was older, obviously. I knew that she really wanted the position, and we were very good friends. So there was no pressure on my part. I could care, for lack of a better word, I could care less if I got the position or if I didn't get the position. So when the day came and they were going to announce who was going to be the manager of this position, I was relaxed. I was cool, calm, and collective. I was composed. I was not stressed. I didn't really care because I knew that she was the one that they were going to name as the manager, and then I would be her assistant. I was okay with that. I was 17 years old. I didn't really need the extra responsibility necessarily, but they presented it to me, so I said, okay, sure, no, why not? So when they came, there was about 3 supervisors that came to announce who was going to be the manager, and we were standing there in the front, and I was probably twiddling my thumbs, just off to myself, just, knew who they were going to announce. And shortly thereafter, I'm hearing all of these congratulations, and they're congratulating me, congratulations, Tiana, as I have been named the manager of this location at 17 years old. And you would think one would be excited and enthusiastic and excited and jumping for joy. I was not. I really wasn't. I was standing there probably stunned and shocked, and I sure, my friend was very stunned and shocked too. You can imagine the expressions on the supervisors' faces as they stood there and they were telling me that I was the new manager. And they said, Tiana, are you going to accept the position? And I said, let me think about it. I didn't jump for the opportunity. I just said, you know what, let me think about it. I'm not really sure. So I went home and I thought about it. And again, this is the time where you start asking yourself those questions, and those negative thoughts start coming into play, and things we begin to make up. Can you do this? You're 17. You're in school. Do you really want to be a manager? You're going to have to make a schedule. You're going to have to hire people. You're going to have to work on Saturday. Just stop it right there. Working on Saturday. My social life? Oh, no. I didn't want to do anything about that. But there was one thing that I could not get out of my head that I've taken with me to this day, and it was this. It was, I didn't want the what ifs. What if I didn't take this position? What could it have blossomed into? What could happen? And it was the thought of not, as I mentioned before, of not wanting to live in regret and not wanting to have that lingering over my head that allowed me to make that final decision of saying, I'm going to take this opportunity, because I didn't want to live in regret. I was looking at all of the limiting things that were in front of me, and I wasn't really looking at all of the possibilities. And that's what I want you to look at. And I'm going to show you a slide, but I want you to look at this and listen to what I said. You have to be able to look at the possibilities and not the limitations. You have to look forward and not behind you. You have to focus on what can be and not on what is or what was. So when I went back and I told them, I said, you know what? Okay, I'll accept the position. Mind you, 17 years old. I was still in high school. I wasn't even legally an adult yet, and I was going to be hiring people. And I accepted the position. And I will go on to tell you, making a long story short, I went on to not only become a manager of this company, I went on to become a regional manager in this particular company. I ended up becoming 100% vested in the company and using that money to purchase my first home almost 5 years ago. I ended up staying with this company for almost 8 years. And I will tell you, and here's the best part, last month, this company became my client. I think that deserves a round of applause. I just think it does. Because I took an opportunity. I did something. I didn't want to live in the regrets. I didn't want to live in the what ifs. And I started to look at the possibilities and not the limitations. And we call that looking out of the windshield and not the rearview mirror. So you have to be a forward thinker and not focus on what was or what is, but what can be. So now I have this opportunity. Actually, I'm training their managers in the company now. And I look at it as a full circle, because that was literally my second job. And I've come through, and they've even made a mention to how they'd like to use me as an example of where people can go from this particular company and how they've developed and come full circle. And so that was the story that I wanted to share with you. So as you're looking at these different steps that we've gone through, identifying your passion is number one. Looking at what could potentially be blocking you and confronting your obstacles and your challenges and coming up with solutions and almost a weapon, if you will, to combat all of that. So looking at all of these things that we talked about, thinking about where you are. Where are you right now? I want you to apply this to where you are in your position. Are you waking up? As Monish talked about earlier, I thought it was so funny, he was talking about the snoozing button. But are you waking up every morning saying, thank God it's Monday, woo, can't wait to get to work? Is that you? I'm seeing heads going like this. If that's not you, why? When you got up this morning, all of you came here, and I'm so thrilled that you all made it out here today in your seats. But there's a reason that you were here sitting in your seats. When you go to work tomorrow, you need to ask yourself, why am I here? Am I waking up looking forward to doing what I'm doing, to seeing the people that I work with, to do what I'm doing? If you're not in a place where you're saying that to yourself, then you need to assess and you need to evaluate some things and priorities in your life. Because how many of you really want to be joyful when you go to work tomorrow? Raise them high. Let me see. That should be you. And what's stopping you from doing that? Okay? So that's where I want you to look at, and I want you to apply and put yourself into that situation. What I'm going to show you next is a picture. And I just want you to look at the picture. I'm just going to let that marinate for a minute. So what do you see in this picture? You can just yell it out. What do you see? Say that again? Taking a leap. What else? This picture, there's so much going on in this picture to me as I'm looking at it. Obviously, you have this person who's leaping, who's taking a leap. You have that beautiful background. You know, that horizon. It's like he's floating on air. Sunset. It's just gorgeous. And then you can see, you know, obviously there's the rock here and there's the rock over there. And so what I like when I look at this picture, there's so many things that I get from this photo, but more importantly, what I want you to see is almost put yourself in that place. Let's look at this 15 minutes before this happened. Let's think about where this person was 15 minutes before he made this leap. So I want to put you in that space right now. So let's envision this person standing on this rock 15 minutes before he made this jump. And maybe for him, maybe he has his eyes closed and he's thinking. He's taking a deep breath. And for you, you might even, if you feel comfortable, you may even want to close your eyes so you can get in this zone. You can visualize this person. And he opens his eyes and he looks out and he sees this beautiful landscape. He's out there, it's just him, it's just the earth. And he's standing on this rock and he sees this place, this second place that he needs to go. He wants to take a leap and he wants to go over to that other side. And then he begins to look down. And what do you think he does when he looks down? What happens? What does he start feeling? Doubt. What else? Where's that word? Fear. So he knows he's going to do it, but again, that fear starts to creep up. He's feeling a little fearful. So he's probably, this is how I envision it, he's probably having some self-talk. You know, you can do it. You got this. You just train for this. You can make this happen. You're confident, you're driven, you're determined, that word we heard earlier. And so he's getting himself in a place to getting ready to make this leap, to go from that rock to that one, from point A to point B. And so again, as I visualize it, he's standing there, he's opened his eyes, he's coming through that place where he's having this fear, and then he might even extend his arms a little bit like this. And sometimes when we do this, we open up ourselves to things and opportunities, and we're embracing what's coming. So he knows he's getting ready to take this huge leap, and so he might even open his arms, extend them out like this, as he's preparing to do his final preparation before he leaps. Because again, that's a sign of opening up and embracing things. And this is just my visualization. And then right before he's getting ready to make this leap, he might even quickly say a prayer. And sometimes that's what taking a leap of faith is. You can do everything right, everything that you're supposed to. And sometimes you just need a little bit of faith in yourself, faith in what you're doing, faith in what you could be. And so that's how I envision this person. So again, he looks out. He anticipates what he's going to see on the other side. He envisions himself making that leap. He extends his arm. He might say a little prayer, and then he jumps. And I want you to think about where you are again in your life. This might be your first step, your first leap. And it's just taking a risk. It's taking a leap of faith, asking yourselves, where am I now? Where do I want to go? And how am I going to get there? Because now is the time for you to be able to make that decision. Now is your time. This is your day. You are empowered. You came here for a reason, so you need to think about what's going on in your life. Think about where you are, what transitions are happening for you, and what steps you need to take toward not only achieving your passion, but making that happen. So here's a little acronym that I want you to take with you as the 7th step from baby steps to big dreams. And it really is just something to help you. I love acronyms because we can all remember them a lot easier. But it's something that literally has helped me in my career and any challenge that I encounter, that I follow this. So how many of you are getting something out there? Are you getting something for what I'm telling you? By a show of hands? Okay. Is this resonating with you? Are any of you in a place where you're like, you know what? I really need to ask myself those 3 questions. Yeah. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? And how am I going to get there? And again, as a coach, that's what I do. I ask questions. I ask those difficult questions so that you can think about where you are and then help move you to action. I want to tell you another story that happened not too long ago. And again, I realized if I had time, I said, if I have time, I'll share this story. So 2 weeks ago, I was in the hospital. And I actually drove myself to the emergency room. I was experiencing some heart palpitations, and I didn't really know where it was coming from, and it caused concern, so I said, I'm going to go to the hospital. And I drove myself to the hospital with my mother. My mother was with me at the time. And I remember getting there and not really wanting to be there. Obviously, I had these heart palpitations, and I didn't know what it was caused. I didn't know where it was from. And of course, it causes concern, so you start getting a little fearful. But I'm in there in the hospital, and I remember thinking how much I did not want to be there. I just did not want to be in the hospital. I'm healthy. I didn't want to be there. And I remember, because it's a long wait. I don't know if you've ever been in the emergency room. I mean, it's just forever. So I'm sitting there. I'm waiting to be seen by the nurse. And I remember telling the nurse, I said, excuse me. I said, this is going to sound really crazy, but I have somewhere to be, and I really don't want to be here. So can you kind of, just get this thing going? I wanted it to be over with. My son had something going on, and I didn't want to miss it, and I really didn't want to be here. So he's like, okay, ma'am, let me just do these tests. Mind you, I'm hooked up to a monitor, and they're doing these tests. And he said, okay, ma'am, no problem, I'm just going to, tell me if you feel that feeling. Because by the time I'd gotten to the hospital and had been seen, that palpitation that I was experiencing had ceased. When you want something to happen at the time, it doesn't really happen. He said, tell me when you start feeling it, then we may be able to pinpoint what's going on. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, okay, gosh, I have to go. I have to be somewhere. I'm going to hurry this up. And suddenly I started feeling that palpitation again. And I told the nurse, I said, I'm feeling it. You want to, come in here? So he comes in and he checks the monitor and he said, okay, I got you. I know what it is. Because before, no one had knew what was causing this heart palpitation or what it was. And had I left at the time that I really wanted to leave, I would have never known what it was that was causing this heart palpitation because I was ready to go. I didn't care if he figured out. I was like, it's no big deal. It'll probably go away. That's the kind of person I'm. It's no big deal. No need to cause concern. It'll go away. Just let me go. Discharge me. Let me go. But I stayed, and he ended up telling me what it was. And come to find out, I had been sick 2 weeks ago, and I actually thought I was going to be sick for this conference. But I was sick 2 weeks ago, and I had taken some over-the-counter medicine, And my husband, I know, is probably over there like, that's what she gets. I tell her not to take over-the-counter medicine because he's organic and he doesn't do any of that stuff. But I took some over-the-counter medicine, and it had caused, there was something in the medicine that had caused this reaction in my body that our heart beats from top to bottom. Just a little education for you guys. Okay, so your heart beats top to bottom, boom, 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 boom. So what was happening with my heart was it was beating bottom top. It was doing this abnormal type of, it was like an arrhythmia. And it was something in this medicine, again, that had caused this palpitation. It was such an uncomfortable feeling, but knowing now what it was that caused it gave me so much relief, because now I know what it was, and now I knew that there was something I could do about it. And he gave me a list of things, basically don't take that, make sure not to drink a lot of caffeine, don't do this, don't do that. And once I realized that was all that I needed to do and it would go away, then I felt so much better. But it was me sitting there, hearing the information, getting all of that, because if I didn't and if I had left, I would have never gotten the information. I would have missed out on all of that. So it was me making sure that I got it, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's a quote that I've heard many times, is that you don't know what you don't know. And if you want to find out those things that you don't know, you need to do something about it. You need to ask yourself some questions, because you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know what was happening with me, and I was willing to leave like, oh, I'll just chalk it off. It's no big deal. I'll be okay. It's not something I need to worry about. I'm going to leave. And how many times do we do that in our life? Oh, I'll get to that later. Yeah, there's this opportunity that came up or something came up. I'll just deal with that later. It's no big deal. Right? We do that, and then we miss out on information. We miss out on things. And so for me, this was a revelation. It was an eye-opener for me, and how it's also played into my personal life, because you start putting things in perspective when you have those type of situations that happen in your life, because it was concerning, because I didn't know what it was and I didn't like that feeling. But I found out what it was, and I was able to do something about it. So you have to be able to do something about where you are in your life right now. So you're probably going to be thinking one of two ways at this point, after everything that I've said. And there's half of you that are probably going to be thinking like, you know what, Tiana, this sounds really great. I hear what you're saying. You really got me thinking. You've asked some really great questions. I really, I've never thought about where I am and where I want to go and all that good stuff. This is really good information. But I'm not sure. I might need someone to kind of really walk me through, and I have some questions. I might need someone to really help me through this process. And if that's you, I want you to raise your hand. People are like, I don't know if I want to raise my hand. Okay, so I see a few people. And that's okay, and that's where I want you to be. Because what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite you to a coaching call. There are people that I know, this is a new experience for you in terms of coaching and working with people. But I'll tell you, and I won't even have to really explain coaching very much, look at any sports. Look at any sports team. You have key components. You have players, and you have a team, you have a game, and you have a coach. What would that team be without a coach? Okay? So you need to have someone rooting for you, cheering you on, holding you accountable for things. So that's why, again, one of the reasons that I'm hearing the other two speakers. So if you're thinking about, this is really good, I'm not sure, I have some questions, but I really want someone to help me, get me started with where I am in my life or my career. And if that's you, as you showed me before, because I have some information that I want to be able to give you. If you're the second type of individuals that might be thinking, you know what, Tiana, you had me right when you stepped out of there. I did my research on you. I knew that that was something that I wanted to do. I need a coach. You had me at hello. That was all I needed. Then I have something for you as well. And I want you to not wait any longer to take a step towards your future, to take a step in the right direction and sign up for coaching. you're the one that's like, I'm ready to go. And if that's you, then I want to meet you at my station in the back when we take a break, and I have some information that I want to give out to you as well. But I want you to start thinking about where you are, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there. Because today is your opportunity, and today is your time to do that. Okay? So I want you to think about these 7 steps and how it applies to you. Dissatisfaction. If you're living in dissatisfaction and you no longer want to be living in dissatisfaction, then you need to do something about it. Okay? You want to be focused on your true passion and your true calling, then you need to do something about that. How many of you really are living your true passion? You found out what that is, and you're just here because it's a Sunday, you came last year, your friend invited you, and you just wanted to be here today. But how many of you really, truly living out your passion? Okay, there's about 6 of you. There's about 6 individuals in here. So the rest of you, there's opportunity for you to do that. So throughout this event that we have going on today, I really want you to think about that. I want you to think about where you are, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there. And I want you to turn to your neighbor and say, you are going to find your calling today. Let's get it. You are going to find out what you're passionate about. Tell them. Because there's no time to wait. There's no time for you guys to wait. Right? Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. You guys need a break? I got you. There's no time for you to wait. You need to be able to do that. So again, I'm going to ask for those who have, and I'm going to ask for the volunteers, if you raise your hand and you were the type of person that thought, you know what, this is exactly what I want. This is something that I'm ready for. That, you know what, Tiana, you had me at hello. This is exactly what I'm looking to do. Then I want you to raise your hand. If you're the type of person, again, that thought, I want someone to walk me through this process. I want to have a coaching call with you. I want you to write your name, your email address, and your phone number on here because I want to talk to you about that process. So was this valuable for you? If it was valuable for you, just give yourselves a hand, okay? I want to thank all of you for the opportunity of sharing my story with you. I hope it resonated with you. I stand here in front of you. 2 years ago, I was where you were. I'm now today a speaker, an author, a strategist, a coach. I work with clients I live in actually the Inland Empire, but I work with clients all over. And so I'm a testimony, and I like sharing my testimony because it's something that I think is worth sharing, that can inspire and empower you, as this is the Empowerment Conference. So I want to thank all of you for giving me your time today, because I'm always glad to talk to people who are willing to let me talk. Okay? So thank you very much.